All right, Mets fans, were you upset when Billy Epler got thrown out of baseball? Suspended, ruled ineligible? Were you happy? Did it matter? Did it not even register to you? Well, here's the background. Billy Epler was the GM. He took over after the Mets hired a GM and had to fire him for off-the-field problems. Hired a GM, had to fire him for off-the-field problems. Brought in Billy Epler. Billy Epler is working with Steve Cohn. Billy Epler wins 100 games, fail in the playoffs. Steve Cohn says, we need someone above Billy Epler. Interviews, least kept secret, brings in David Stearns, the former Brewers guy. David Stearns joins the Mets and says, we're very excited to have Billy Epler here. As a matter of fact, Billy Epler is sitting in the front row. I want to thank him and his family. That was David Stearns' welcome press conference. A couple days later, Billy Epler says, you know what? I really think I got to resign. I want to really get away. I'll tell you why. Because I believe that for David Stearns to be the best man he can be, that I shouldn't be just around. He should have his own guys in there. Huh. Never heard that one, ever. So then we found out that there's some sort of weird investigation going on with Major League Baseball, that Billy Epler may have manipulated the injury list and put players on the injured list who weren't actually injured as a way to do roster management. I did an entire segment on that, explaining to you that everybody does this. I've manipulated an injury list more times than I manipulate my sack on an airplane. That's a terrible image, but you know when you're sitting for too long and it's sticky and hot? Every team, not one team, not 5 teams. This is like the cheating scandal, trying to steal signs. Oh yeah, it was just the Astros. Everybody. MLB investigates. They have this big Department of Investigation. They did this long, major investigation. And they ruled this weekend that Billy Epler is going to be ineligible through this entire season because what he did was so beyond the pale. But here's what we need you to know, came out of the Department of Investigations in the commissioner's office. Nobody above him knew what was happening. Sound familiar? Jim Crane and Jeff Luhnow had no idea what was happening. Jeff Luhnow got punished but claims he didn't know. Jim Crane didn't get punished and claims he did not know. And I told you that is how I started to say horse hockey. So I'm going to just give you a quick story about how it goes. Every day I get an injury report emailed to me. Before email, it was printed out and given to me. Every day as president of the team, I was in the training room at the end of every game, home and away. If I'm not at a game, the GM's at every game, or the AGM, and the first thing we talk about after the game is the injury report. The injury report. Who's on it? What's their status? Do they need a DL? Who went to the training room? Is it DL? Not DL. Now it's called the IL. We go player by player. Hey, this guy's been ineffective. We're going to say he's got a bad back. We want him to get some starts down in the minor leagues. To put a player on the injured list, the player and the union are aware of it and have to agree to it. Players know when they're not hurt, and they know, hey, it's better than being released. You go on the injured list, you're getting major league service time and major league pay. But what MLB investigated and discovered is that Billy Epler had this seedy thing going where he was making up injuries and then falsifying reports, and nobody knew. Now listen, you say that about A.J. Preller, and I say, hell yeah. He had his own set of medical records that he didn't want to share with other teams. But I bet internally he knew what the real medical records were. There is no owner. Steve Cohn, you're not aware of your assets and whether or not they can perform for you? Hey, is the market open today? I can't remember. That's okay. I'll figure it out later. That's the concept. That's the same thing as not knowing when you're in the hedge fund business, not knowing whether or not a player is hurt. And if a player is hurt on the injured list, you say to your GM, by the way, how long is he out? Oh, let me check my document, which says how long a player's out. By the way, you speak to your team doctor. You're doing all these things. Billy Epler had to take it on the chin because Billy Epler wants to work in baseball again. So baseball went to Billy Epler and said, listen, we need to crack down on this injury list manipulation stuff because we don't like these players getting major league service and getting major league pay. We're going to have to make an example of you, so here's what you're going to have to do. If you want to have any sort of announcing job this year, make any sort of money, and keep your head in the game, and get a job as a assistant GM or maybe even a GM one day, here is what your statement's going to be. I cooperated fully and transparently with MLB's investigation, and I accept their decision. That is the definition of a forced confession. MLB, from their side, did an entire press release, and they wanted to let you know at the end that they consider the matter closed and will have no further comment. And what they were saying is that he directed the following pattern of conduct in violation of MLB's rules: improper use of injured list placement, including the deliberate fabrication of injuries and the associated submission of documentation for the purposes of securing multiple improper injured list placements during the 22 and 23 season. The Department of Investigations is a great unit within MLB. Did they investigate the other 29 teams? Because every single one of them, every single year, does that exact thing that you listed. And if you're just trying to make an example of someone, why does he have to be ineligible for the whole season? Just suspend him 30 days or 60 days. Why? Epler was a willing patsy. He was willing to take the year, so now GMs are going to say, that's a big deterrent. I could be suspended for a year. Guess what's going to happen in 2024? There will be phantom injury placements because roster management trumps paying attention to these rules and this warning.